Hi, I'm Dr. George Yancey. Let's share some paradigms. And the paradigm I want to share today is Christians and political activism. And I want to approach this because I know we'll also discuss identity politics, but I want to not approach it from that point of view. I want to approach this from the point of view of Christians in a post-Christian society. Because one of the things I'm concerned about is Christianophobia. Now, you may know in other videos I define Christianophobia as fear, as anger towards Christians that's unwarranted. And it's usually at conservative Christians because of the nature of Christianophobia into society today. So, at one point of our society, I think it was fair to say that we lived in a fairly Christian society. Not in a theocracy type of way, but in a way that Christians were well respected, that Christians was actually a status that people enjoyed, and it opened up doors for you. And I'm not saying it doesn't open up doors today, but it opens up far less doors today. I think that's fair to say. That Christians, to some degree, had influence in the media, in the arts, those sort of things. Today, we're in a post-Christian society. And what I mean by this is that Christians, the status of Christians is no longer favored, and that while Christians are a numerical majority, whether that we retain that remains to be seen, the impact, the influence is not nearly what it was, and indeed, being a Christian can come at a cost. In this Christian society, Christians kind of had a lot of political power, directly and indirectly. If you want to get something done, you had to kind of appeal to Christians to a certain degree. In a post-Christian society, that's not the case. In fact, sometimes you can gain political power by attacking Christians, particularly conservative Christians. And I've discussed this in other venues on how this might happen. Certain politicians use a religious test against Christians. Do you believe certain things theologically? Therefore, you're disqualified for office, this sort of thing. So that is true. So Christians are now having to adjust in a society where they can come in and they had influence status merely by being a Christian to one where that is no longer the case. How do we adjust to that? Well, there's two ways in which I think people adjust to that. They either fight or they flee. Fight or flight. You want to think about it that way. So the fight option is, as we move from a Christian society to a post-Christian society, some Christians want to fight this. They fear that what we're losing is our Christian heritage, our Christian society. They want to take the society back for God. And this is not just spiritually, this is also politically. When I talk about conservative Christian identity politics, this is a big, big theme among them. Taking the world back for God. We got to fight this. We have these encroaching secular forces coming on us, and we got to fight it back. So there's the fight option. Now, the problem with the fight option is this. Now, and I'm not even talking about a moral or ethical issue, because I think there are moral, ethical issues to this fight option. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about practical. The fight option made more sense when we had a Christian society. Because you could fight and you could win. Purely fighting is not going to win. Now, no people are saying, well, we've won. We have Trump. Look at your Republican Party. It's not the same Republican Party of 10 or 15 years ago. It's not a Republican Party that deeply values a pro-life position. It may protect Christians, but their values are not seen in the likes of Trump and Rogan and Musk and other people we could name that are now powerful. Kennedy, Gabhart, who are power players in the Republican Party. There are Christians still there, but it's not the same thing. So Christians have a role in the Republican Party, but they're not dominant, not the way they used to be. So you can fight, you're going to get so far. Because in a post-Christian society, you don't have the cachet, you don't have the status you once had. That leaves the other option is just flee. And some Christians, this is their option. Look, our society is poisoned. It's no longer a Christian society. Let's gather together as Christians. We'll influence what we can, but we'll protect ourselves. We'll flee from this. Now, this is a viable option, obviously. Obviously, there's some desire to flee, to protect oneself, set up some walls, raise your kids as best you can. I'm not begrudging that as an option. But then we leave society to fend for itself. And I have to ask, is that what God would want us to do? To just flee, to not have any real influence. And I also think it's a mistake to think that if we flee, if we build the walls that we need, they'll leave us alone. I'm afraid to say that that's not the case. I know from personal experience, having interviewed atheists, having interviewed people who are cultural progressives, who kept telling me, look, just go to your churches and your homes and leave us alone. And then seen cases where individuals were attacking pastors in their churches for what they spoke about. Eric Walsh is a great example of this. And I'll post his story in the description below. So I can't believe that if we just go and remain to ourselves, we'll be left alone. So how do we handle this? How do we handle political activism in a post-Christian world? Fighting can't win. Retreat is problematic. Let me suggest what I would call a seat at the table approach. That we should enter the political arena saying, we have the same rights as everyone else. We don't have more rights, but we do have the rights we do have. We have a right to be heard. We have a right to run for office. We have a right to push for our ideas. We don't have the right to dictate what the outcomes are going to be, but we do have a right to have a seat at the table. So that when politicians try to use a religious test and say, because of your theological beliefs, you can't serve in this office, or you can't be appointed as judge, we need to push back hard and say, that is religious bigotry. We deserve to have a seat at the table just as much as you do. When people try to encroach on our campus organizations or our churches, which unfortunately has happened from time to time, we can push back and say, you have a right to your beliefs. We deserve a seat at the table. I believe this seat at the table approach is the best approach. Those who want to fight say, no, we don't want just a seat at the table. We want to take the whole table with us. I understand that sentiment. I understand that they have good intentions. They believe that a society run by Christian values is a better society. I'm inclined to see there's some truth to that. However, when Christians attack and try to gain it all and try to take the whole table, they will engender a great deal of resistance in a post-Christian world where they do not have the power to defend themselves. But when we argue that we have the same rights as everyone else, why are you taking away our rights? And do so in ways of saying, we just want that seat at the table. It's a lot harder for people to engage in the Christianophobia where they can take away those rights. On the other hand, those who want to retreat may say, no, let's not mess with the government. That's dirty. We want to try to stay pure. I understand that sentiment. But understand that you will only be left alone for so long. And we Christians have something to offer to the larger society. And we should. So we have to come out of that sort of shell we're going to protect ourselves and take that seat at the table. My argument is the seat at the table approach is the best way to address Christian political activism in a post-Christian society. And thinking through how we can advocate this seat at the table approach is something that we Christians should think more seriously about and how to implement it. Does this share some paradigms for you? Paradigms about how Christians can engage in activism, thinking through about how fighting isn't going to win and fleeing is not the best approach? Should we discuss more of this seat at the table approach? Maybe you know someone who might be interested in this. Please tell them. If you like this video, please like it. If you want to subscribe, please do. That gets the message out to more people. If you don't like what I'm saying, I encourage you to comment. Comment if you do like what I'm saying. Let's have an engagement. We need to talk these things through. Thanks for coming here, and please come back. We can shatter some more paradigms.